didn't clap. All right, what's going on, everybody? So, Value Pursuit here. We're in the house of Ludensol Detailing of Westchester, New York. We have two guests today. As you guys know, I had Randy on, who's the owner of Ludensol. Another episode, and we were both sick that day. My phone maxed out on storage. We had to redo the video that filmed up for 30 minutes out of the hour that we did totally, and retake it, and we kind of condensed that extra 30 minutes that got dropped into 10 minutes, and it just wasn't that great, so we always planned on doing this again. We got Greg here today from BuyYourBuild. Randy and Greg are friends, and I'm friends with Greg too, obviously. But we wanted to have them both on because they're close buddies, they both have their own businesses, both big car guys, have had a lot of cars, and we just kind of want to hear their story, kind of hear how they started out, hear how they met one another, and hear about, you know, their passion for cars and get into all that kind of stuff. So yeah. I guess we'll start out with basically, how did you guys meet? That was what we said before.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't even remember how we met.
I think we met when I first got my Supra, probably like 2018 around then is when we met. And I think you were just starting like your shop out of next door.
Yep.
With your 2-bay.
Yep.
And even with the Supra, like I always brought my flip cars over to you to get work done, whether it was a basic detail or ceramic coating or any work like that. But I think it was mainly through the Supra community where we really started to meet up more often, and then with the tri-state Supras too around here, Westchester.
And unfortunately, I think when you had your Supra, mine wasn't working. So that's what I remember. So we never really got to actually drive our cars together, which means that it's time for you to get another one.
Yeah. We ever since we had Supras, like mine always had issues. Like building these cars is so challenging because you can never find a reputable shop.
Yeah.
That
Why
will
is
do.
that though? Is it just?
I don't know what it is, but just the Northeast, it's been really difficult to find good shops for these old JDM cars because I think it's also hard finding tuners as well, because when I had my car, I was using tuners that were coming to location doing a very quick hour tune session, and the car would have drivability issues leaving the place. It would have cold start issues after that because they don't really spend a lot of time focusing on that. They're focusing more on doing the dyno runs. The car runs great when you're making power, but cold starts, warm starts, like everything else was always lacking. And that's what made it really frustrating to own an old JDM car.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with the shops nowadays, though, is that once they do the job, they kind of just check out and they keep it, on to the next. And I think that's the biggest, not just auto repair shops like that, but even like detail shops. A lot of times, you don't care about the customer once they're gone. And that's one of the things that we try to pride ourselves is we want you guys to be like part of the community. And that's kind of, everybody that I've kind of detailed their cars or touched their cars, we've always become friends after, you know what I mean? And especially we go to meets and we see each other, and then we just connect and we stay connected. So with the Supra, it's been a long road for me too. And it's kind of one of those things that, you want to give up, but then when you finally get to drive the car, you realize why you did it, and for me, I feel like I'll never get tired of that sound and the way that the car feels. And I never see myself really getting rid of my car,
Before we get into your guys' origin story, because I do want to, I know we've done an episode with you on that, but we can talk about that again. And then Greg's new guest now, so we'll have him talk about his kind of where he's come from. But why the Supra? Like, I know we talked about it.
Yeah.
I know it's a legendary car. Like, all the guys out there, they know, like, they make power.
Greg, why'd you choose a Supra?
For me, it was always like my dream car, like JDM car as a child. Yeah. So I just remember being in, I think it was like sophomore year of college. It was like 2014. I saw a black Supra drive by, and it was like, that's the sickest sounding car I've ever heard drive by. And at the time, I looked them up, the values. It was like, okay, $30K. That's a lot of money for a 20-something-year-old Toyota.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do people afford these cars? Like, do they get a loan? How do you get a loan for such an old car? It was not until a few years later that I realized you can get a loan from Lightstream, where you just put in your financials, and they send you the money the next
Lightstream
day.
sponsor us.
Yeah, Lightstream. They send you the money the next day. You could do whatever you want with it. Go out and buy the car. It's like, that's how I'm gonna get my first Supra.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I found on Facebook a 94 turbo 6-speed white with a rebuilt title, and I got it for under 40K.
Wow.
And at the time, like, that was a considerable amount of money for a rebuilt Supra. And nowadays, like, you can get that same car for double the price.
Exactly.
Double to even triple.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's rebuilt.
Yeah.
So, but for me, like, the power, the sound, just the way the car looks, I think it's one of the most iconic JDM cars you can have.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
I've had all of them, and I can always say that the one that I'll buy again is the Supra.
Well, yeah. So Greg has had RX-7. He's had an NSX. You need a Skyline next. I think that if you get a R34, he had an R32.
32.
But yeah, I think you need an R34 next.
35 or no?
35, yes.
Yeah, 35. Yeah. So he's had all the cars, and that says a lot about the Supra. Because you've had two Supras.
2 white 94 Supras, and I would definitely get another one.
These are, I mean, they can see this from a little bit, right? The edge of this car, maybe?
Yeah, a
with
little bit
that
on
camera
that
view.
one, yeah.
But what year is your car?
So mine
It's a
is
different body
actually
style
a
than
93. No, same
Oh, it
thing.
is? Okay, so there are
technically
early
93 and a half because it's so it was Premier Edition. They came out halfway between 93. So it's considered a 93 and a half, and it's a Premier Edition, which really doesn't mean anything. It's just like the first was made. And I found my car on Craigslist, which just is funny because you don't even use Craigslist anymore. But I found my car on Craigslist for an insane deal. At the time, it was crazy, and I didn't even have the money to buy it either. And I actually took out a loan from Citizens Bank, and I went and I gave the guy $1,000 to hold it. I said, hey, give me a week, I'll come back with the rest, and then figured it out, came back with the rest, and drove the car home. So that was something I wasn't planning. It literally was from one day to another. I found it and went to go look at it. And actually, the funny thing is, the car was already sold to someone from Virginia. And I told the owner, I said, listen, I'll give you $1,000 extra, just hold it for me. Mm-hmm. And the next day, the guy couldn't make it, which was perfect for me. And the guy called me and told me, he goes, listen, the guy can't make it. And that was it.
Where was the car located?
It was actually in Queens.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it was hidden behind, in Queens, all the houses are right next to each other. So the driveway was like, you could barely fit the car through. And it was like hidden in the back. You would never know it was there. And it had 52,000 miles when I picked it up. And now we're at like 60 now.
Was it already GTE swapped?
Yeah, so it was twin turbo, but it had an R154. I actually picked it up for 34,000. So at that time, it was a 93. It had everything, but it was all stock. So all it was just lowered. And when I picked it up, it was silver with wingless, which was one of the, no one really wants a silver Supra. No one wants a wingless Supra. And I just fell in love with it. And then just recently, I finally put a TRD spoiler, which is...
That looks really good.
The reason why I wanted a Supra, obviously Fast and Furious, but I remember I used to see like the Super Street magazines and stuff, and I remember there was this one white Supra with a carbon fiber hood that had a TRD spoiler on it, and I had that saved as like my computer, backdrop, and ever since then that was like the vision that I wanted. So, yeah,
that's awesome. John, can you just make sure that's filming still? Still red? All right, awesome. So just to transition real quick, Greg, to introduce you, take us through kind of like when you first got into cars. The Supra sounds like it's like a kind of start point when you first saw that black Supra. That kind of like where your love for cars came, and then kind of take us up to present day. And
sure.
Like a brief overview if you can.
Yeah, I think my love for cars definitely started when I was an adolescent. Like I probably had a 400 or 500 collection of those little Hot Wheels and Matchbox cars. And I made my parents waste so much money on that. And I think I still have them at my parents' house, but you could always see me on cars.com, like just going through all the models. Like I was this 6-7-year-old kid that knew every new car that was out, because I would spend hours on cars.com just like building cars on the website. Mm-hmm. I loved doing that as a kid before I even was old enough to have a license. I would go on like, Mazda.com, and I was building out like RX-8s, and they were like $45K, and now they're like $1,500. So it's crazy. But when I was old enough to finally buy a car, I started out with a Honda. It was a second, what do you call it? Hand-me-down car
Yeah.
from my father. He had an '06 Accord. It was a V6 EXL, so it was automatic, unfortunately, but it was like the highest trim level. It had the J30 in it. So, I riced it out because that's what high school kids do. They plasti dip the wheels,
Yep.
they plasti dip the sunroof area. I did tints, a full audio system, and I tried to do everything on my own. And I think that's what really got my love for cars is really working on them. And ever since then, like I've built my tool collection up from this little crappy little toolbox with just like screwdrivers and hand wrenches, like the cheapest stuff you can find, to now like I have these big tool chests and basically any tool you can think of, I probably have it somewhere. But love working on cars, and I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. I've been involved in family business since I was a kid. And then in 2010, I think I was a sophomore in high school, I started my first e-commerce business that was completely unrelated to cars. It was, I was buying and reselling trendy products, and I started in my high school, and that got really popular. Like I became like this, no one knew me to like everyone knew me. They would hit me up for like buying stuff on a daily basis. I was carrying like my product through class, and my teachers noticed. They're like, "Is that gray market stuff?" I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." But that transcended into college. I was majoring in business, so taking like finance and accounting and marketing courses. And I was like, I'm learning all this stuff. Let me put it into practice. So in 2014, I started my first car parts company, which I have still to this day, just under a different name, but that was called Redline Performance at the time. And I did that as a way to not only get car parts at wholesale so that I could share the pricing and the fast shipping with my friends and local car community, but also to help, build my brand and build my car. I actually did have a WRX at that time. I sold it because it was about to blow up. So,
Like, when isn't it, right?
Yeah. Other people too that may be here.
Yeah. But I grew that business over the years. In 2017, when I graduated, I created a new one, BuyYourBuild, which I have to this day. And that's where we still continue to sell the auto parts for Japanese, European, American performance cars. But we started doing a lot of repair and installation work as well. So that's kind of like, in a nutshell, how my story started. But I've always had a love and attachment for cars. It's kind of like therapy to me to be surrounded in it one way or another.
Your parents, do they have like business and stuff, and they got you more into that, or because I know your dad? Because I go to you. We'll tell the viewers. Obviously we're friends, and I go to you for installation parts and service and whatnot. And can't recommend him more. I send all my people there now, or at least try to. Yeah. But like your dad, you always say isn't into cars, so I know you said from playing with toys and whatnot got you into it. But
yeah,
what like kind of kept you going, like from the e-commerce business?
Like
obviously you probably had a lot of ups and downs with that being. Was it successful right off the bat, or did you have any kind of issues with it in the beginning to get it kind of flowing and be something that was lucrative?
Yeah, I mean, my family never really liked cars. I'm probably one of the only people that actually like have an affinity towards them beyond just having like a nice car, for example, to drive. But my dad didn't care about it, so he was never really supportive about it. He thinks that cars is like a hobby, just playing with cars is what he would say. Why are you playing with cars, wasting your time, wasting your money on cars? I'm like, I'm building a business out of these cars, and like whenever a car comes over, like it's helping me establish, my whole tool system. Mm-hmm. Like if I didn't have any work coming in, I wouldn't be able to afford to scale this business and all the parts. But no, it was never successful like off the bat. When I first started, it was like I had no idea what I was doing. And there's a saying out there, you're not going to get rich off your friends, right? So you have to go out and you have to build a market and build a brand and generate like that organic traffic, and that way you have a sustainable business. Mm-hmm. But lots of up and downs, and it's always just kind of like trial and error. You're figuring things out, see what's working, see what's not working, And I would say like social media has really taken off in the past few years. So you really have to leverage that to really spread word about your business. And I feel like that's kind of the hard thing for me, is because I don't have someone to like shoot content and edit it for me. So I have to do everything on my own. And that's been the biggest struggle for me, is finding the time and, you know, the locations and the ability to have the content be made. I think is one of the trickiest parts right now.
For sure.
But
Yeah.
Randy, you are killing it with the social
Yeah, I was gonna
media.
just say,
so
like, to transition
I'm gonna
to
hand
you,
it off
Randy.
to you and how you started.
Why
and how
don't
you
you talk
got
about
here.
so we can talk about the Supra a little more, because I know that
Yeah.
kind of got cut out, like the story. But how did you go from when you first met Greg, when you were in the smaller space, and then even before that, when you were working with one of your buddies, in his shop, to this point now, present day? Like, I think we talked about it in the last episode, but it may have gotten cut out. When you kind of transitioned from I got to do this all on my own to I have to allocate time to other people to be able to take on more work, make more content, bring in higher end cars like this $700,000 Lamborghini behind us. You know what I mean? So
I think the biggest thing was I had to learn that I couldn't do it all on my own. And in the beginning, I tried doing everything all on my own. And what ends up happening is that you can never do everything like great. You can do like a few things good, but you can do like one or two things great, right? So that's what I had to learn to do. So I just started detailing as far as like doing paint corrections and stuff. Try to get as best as I could at that, and then I had the opportunity to move into my garage next door, like right around COVID era. And then I remember that first month, I just had to do like a sink or swim type of thing, where I just reached out to everybody that I knew, and I knew that I had to pay rent for the first time that I never had to pay before, because I was mobile before, so just had to pay for gas, which I had to pay for gas anyway. And now I had rent over me, so I said, I got to make sure that I'm getting some jobs coming in. And it went from being super scary the first couple months to it just kind of just moving along. And it's, I learned to not really think about, you think too far out into the future about like what's going to happen next month, then you start getting scared, and you just kind of have to have faith that you're going to make it through, and things just work out, right? So this garage has been something that I've always dreamed of, having a bigger garage, because before I had a 2-car garage, which got real tight real fast. And then this opportunity kind of popped up. The landlord wanted to build a garage. He asked me if I was interested. And then I said, yeah, let's do it. Let's make it happen. It took about a year. And within that time frame, I was trying to think of how I could make this space a little bit better. And that's when my buddy Eric reached out to me from Dream Interior Design, and he said that he was going to move back here from Cali, and he was thinking about starting a business around here. So things happen for a reason, and I figured, hey, he's calling me for a reason. I kind of said jokingly, I said, hey, why don't we work together? I have a new space that's going to be built, and we can probably make something happen. And that little conversation just ended up being, a couple emails back and forth, more phone calls back and forth, and then a few months later, he was here visiting, and he looked at the spot for the first time, and then that's kind of when we finalized everything, and we said, all right, you know what, you're going to come on board, and I'm going to rent you a couple bays here. We're going to split upstairs, so this way you can do what you do here, and we're both going to kind of make each other grow and help each other out. And that was one of the first kind of partnerships that I did was with Eric, and we've been here now for over a year, and it's been great. And then another person that kind of came along the way was John from Automax. So he does all the window tinting, and he also does the audio systems. So he actually was recommended to me from another buddy of mine, Kenrick. I was talking to him, and I told him, I said, hey, listen, I'm going to move into a new spot. I'm looking for someone that could probably take over my old garage. And that's how I started off originally. He told me about someone named John. He said, hey, this guy is looking for this. He's kind of like 40 minutes away. And I said, okay, cool. So he came. I met him for the first time, and I didn't know who he was before. And we talked. And then originally he didn't want to move into the shop. He just wasn't feeling it. And then when I finally moved into the bigger location, we talked again, and somehow I convinced him into moving in over here. So in the beginning was hard because we didn't really know each other, and then we kind of started working, together little by little, And then now John's another big part of kind of what we do. So, you know, our goal is always to be able to do like a one-stop shop. And that's another reason why we work with Greg a lot too. You know, he does all the parts. I get customers to ask me, you know, can we do this, that? We can order it right through him, which is also where I ordered all my parts. And then for the installs, you know, he's helped us install some parts for customers' vehicles as well, which is another service that we like to, you know, do as far as like you want to get like a body kit or something or an exhaust, you know, little things like that. We can do that here. Now we can do all the interior work. We can do window tinting, audio systems. Eric is also getting more into the 3D printing aspect of it. So right now they're designing a speaker pod for Supras, which is going to be really big. So little things like that. It's cool that now everything kind of came together, which is something that a year ago, 2 years ago, I had no idea was going to get to this point, you know. So just kind of just going with the flow and making things work. It just, you know, here we are, and I'm excited to see where we can, you know, continue.
Cool. Two-part question for both of you guys. You both can answer. You said not worrying too far in the future, which I think is interesting because a lot of people talk about how to set goals for like week, monthly, yearly, and like a vision board is a big thing that I hear about, which kind of both you and Greg mentioned. You didn't technically have a vision board, maybe you did or didn't, but like you had cars that you saw and had like a memory that stuck with you and was something that was like kind of really ingrained in like your like want for the future and like DNA is something that like lit you up and made you feel a certain way, like an experience. So do you now with this business and for you too, Greg, for your business, do you guys have a system that you use for short-term, long-term goals and something to keep you on track of where you want to end up?
Yeah.
Or do you guys, maybe both of you do it differently, just kind of take it as it comes, like day by day, week by week, month by month?
Well, I'll say that two things about that. What I do is I have my goal of what I want, and I just have faith that I'm gonna just find a path along the way. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily like I don't have a plan. It means that like I make it work through that plan, but I do want to learn and kind of get better at actually making smaller goals instead of a bigger goal. Because then this way I can kind of attain that and then move on to the next one, which is kind of where I feel like I'm at now.
Totally agree with you, Randy, on that, because you know the system that I kind of use for keeping track of my day-to-day activities and my goals, and I use it at my day job too. Is it's Monday.com. It's kind of like a wall of work where you can just lay out everything that you need to do, what your goals are, and what's blocking you from getting there, what exactly is it going to take to get there. And you can put like timelines and things like that. But the most important thing about setting goals, I think, like Randy said, is to make small goals, obtainable goals, is very important, because you don't want to make a dream and you don't have no clear path to get there. You have to have a clear line of sight to how you're going to achieve each of these goals. Otherwise, it's unrealistic. I don't think it's ever going to happen. So for me, like this past week was, I want to revamp my website for BuyYourBuild, and it's a lot of work, to make it look nice, to get the content and the pictures and how to lay everything out. But you kind of have to set time aside every single day to fulfill that and to achieve that. You're not going to do everything in one shot. It's not going to take, a day to do everything that you want to do. So, you can apply this methodology to anything that you're doing in life. Let's say you want to get fit. You're not going to do 1 week in the gym and expect results immediately. And that was like the biggest thing for me was, I was insecure about my body and being overweight for many years in my life. And I would go to the gym, go for a week and be like, all right, I'm killing it. And then, I'd fall off. And then I do that over and over and over again for many years. And it was not until like my health was really at its low point. Like I literally had no energy to get up in the morning. I had no motivation to do anything besides like play games and eat and, watch TV. And I was taking like naps throughout the day because I had no energy. My testosterone was
Man was in the food coma.
I was dead all the time. But, I was like, I'm sick of this lifestyle. I need to change. And, now I'm probably like 3-4 years of consistently going to the gym. And still, I don't have the perfect, six pack and everything that I've dreamt I would have by now. But like I said, you just gotta work towards those little goals. And as long as you're better, making yourself better, or, whatever it might be, as long as you're trying to improve a little bit day by day, and I think that's the most important thing. You gotta take each little win, every little success one at a time. You can't set like, oh, I want to have 10 wins in a row. Like you can't have that.
Exactly.
So if you just measure one by one, I think that's really the best way to take on a clear path to building success for your future.
Yeah. And I want to add too, I think that you said the gym, that's something that is very good, because not only is it good for your health and, you want to get stronger and stuff, but I also feel like it trains one of the most important things, which I feel is discipline.
Yep.
The more you go to the gym, like, you just get into that habit, and it's to the point that, like, for me, if I miss a day because I'm sick or I can't make it because I'm busy or something, my day is off. And it's funny when I say it like that, but it really, my whole day is off. I feel like just something is not right. And I go in the morning very early, and then when I get to work, like, I actually have energy. Like, I have extra energy because I'm just running off of the high from the gym. And the days that I can't go, then I feel like I have no energy, which is weird when you think about it, because I exerted all my energy earlier, but I come with more energy, But that has been one big thing for me too, is just the discipline aspect of that. This way you can stay disciplined with other things, that you do in your daily life.
Do you guys both feel like, and Greg, you made a good point with like being not happy with your health and kind of at a low point. Was your business thriving in that period of your life?
It was and was not, because I was also during COVID when it happened. So like, its install work and repair work was not really doing well. But actually at the time, the stock market was going crazy. Interest rates were really low. So people wanted to just spend money during that time. Like, you could finance a car at under 2% for 65 months. That's when I was able to get my first exotic car, because their interest rates were stupid low. And I had just sold my first Supra.
Pro tips.
Yeah, right? That's what it was.
Yeah, but people just wanted to spend money. They were buying houses, they were buying cars, they were building cars. Like, people had all this free time now to work on their cars. So they were doing a lot of builds. And me personally, I built my whole car during COVID. Yeah. But what I should have been doing was, probably getting like a master's degree or something, instead of playing video games and building cars. Yeah. But those I can't believe that's already been 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a long time, believe it or not. But that was the time when people would just call and not even ask how much. It was just like, I want this. When can you do it? And then it was just everybody had money.
Now it's hard. Now money is tighter. Yes. Interest rates are high for everything. Cars, houses, salaries are way lower relative to cost of living. Mm-hmm. So people don't really have the urge to spend as much. So I think it's a little bit slower now when it comes to building cars. But there are still people that build their cars, of course. But I just think the tendency to spend like absorbent amount of money on cars is a little bit lower now. And I don't know if you noticed the same thing on the detail side, because you've also been building your business over the years, so the volume is definitely higher. But like you personally, would you spend as much money now as you did maybe a few years ago when cost of living was lower, rates were lower?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that now you have to think twice.
Yeah.
You have to think twice before you spend the money, but it is true. People are spending much less than they were before. And another thing about that is you want to learn to take care of what you have now too. So for example, like now buying a new car is like, it's crazy, the rates, everything. So you can take your older car and preserve it, make it look nice. And now those cars are worth money too. So, it's bad in a way, but it's also good in a way,
That could be like a whole podcast topic of cars.
Of cars, yeah.
Just like certain brands because of the cult behind them, like Porsche.
I mean, so many cars like Supra, like we were talking about Supras. I mean, back in 2018, you can get a very nice example for $40,000, and now that same example is going to be worth $90 or more.
Yep.
And that's a big thing because E46 M3s, all these cars. There's so many cars that we can name.
Porsches especially.
Yeah, like they're just
triple.
cars, that people didn't want before. I mean, I want to say one car, the CTS-V wagon, that everybody like absolutely loves right now. No one liked it years ago. Everybody hated it. It was an ugly car.
Make that for that long, right?
They didn't make it. No, they didn't make it for that long. But it's now, dude. Like one sold for like 70,000. Like
Wow.
these crazy, cars that no one looked at before. But it's the cult following, and it's also people want to enjoy older cars now because a lot of new cars have crazy technology that takes away from the experience. That's
sure.
why I like this. For example, this Lamborghini Revuelto is, to me, is so interesting because it has a V12. But on top of that, it has 3 hybrid motors. So now you're taking the technology that's now, right? But they bring it together so it works like a NA V12 that's making 1,001 horsepower. So like when you drive it, like cars, like these new cars with turbos and stuff, you get that turbo lag, all that stuff. But this has the sound of the V12, which is what makes a Lamborghini like cool, I would say, And then it just makes it like all the modern stuff working together and making it work like it should. It's freaking amazing. 0 to 60 in freaking 2 seconds. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's really insane.
Got to do some chin tucks and some upper trap stretching before
you
you get
can
in
just
it.
imagine 2 seconds.
This is definitely, we could spend an hour talking about this.
Yeah.
Modern versus classic cars.
Yeah, we should do it. We'll do an episode on that for sure. But today, I just wanted to get you involved. But for the gym, were you working out before like Ludensol even came to fruition?
Gym is always something that I have done because it's my therapy. Sometimes you have a bad day and you go to the gym and you work it out and you feel good. So I've always had that, which is why I've been somewhat disciplined. Now before, I wasn't as disciplined as I am now. Now I go 6 days a week and it's just a regular thing. I wake up early, go to the gym, and it's just it's just what I do now. So yeah, it's always been there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
2 things I wanted to add to that actually, like because the gym, people have different reasons why they go to the gym. One is obviously to get fit, to get healthier, to lose weight. But I think when we live such busy lives and we're doing so much, and now that we're getting older, we're starting families, our parents are getting older, like we have so many more things to worry about. Going to the gym for me, like early in the morning before starting work, it's kind of just like an hour and a half of time to just myself.
Exactly.
And it's not like, people meditate, people do yoga. There's a lot of different things that people do to, get that time for themselves. For me, I do a little bit of cardio, but I do mostly like weight training and things like that. For me, like I'm not focusing on anything else during that time. I try to keep my phone on do not disturb. I just play my music and I focus on myself. But after that, like the day is hectic. You're getting blasted by 15 different people while you're working. And then like if you have kids too, like you just don't have that time. So, and the other good thing, I think it's something that we should all try is, when you're at work, you focus just at work. And then when you go home, you don't bring that work back with you to home. When you're at home, you focus on home. And then when you're at the gym, you focus on the gym. And it's something that I saw on like Instagram before. And I was like, that's something really good and that I should try more often. Because I think when you have a shitty day at work, you bring that home with you and it ruins your mood. You pass that on to your spouse. You might start a fight with them, and it just kills the day for everyone. So I think that's something that I've been trying to practice more often is to keep that separate, different parts of what you're doing throughout the day.
The focused attention thing I think is really important because there's a saying, I think Alex Ramosi was the one, it might be the same video you're talking about, but he talked about how we all have the same amount of time and people, like you just said, get pulled in so many different directions. And myself too, like I'm on Instagram a lot and you can just doom scroll forever and just...
Oh yeah.
So,
it's an addiction.
Yeah, it's just a matter of really like focusing on, like Greg was saying before, his website he wants to work on. If he's working on it 20 minutes every single day versus like 2 hours one day every week. I think that's the most important thing is the consistency.
But that's what it is with everything.
Attention.
Consistency with everything. But going to what Greg said about when you're in the gym, be in the gym. When you're at work, be at work. And it's kind of that's the biggest thing, the biggest hurdle I feel like people have a hard time fighting. You know, you want to be where your feet are, right? So like the same thing. When I go to the gym, I'm there at 5 o'clock in the morning, and it's the best time because I know that my phone is not going to be blowing up. So I'll have a whole hour and a half to myself of just thinking my thoughts, kind of planning out the day, or just, you know, just being like quiet. Even though I have music blasting in my ears, and even though I'm, you know, throwing weights around and stuff, I feel peace. And that's my peace, and that's the reason why when I don't go, then I'm off because I don't have that peace. But yeah, when you have a problem at work and then you take it home to your wife, you know, your kids, whatever, like it's not good, you know. And the same thing for them too. Like if they do that, you know, that sucks because now you're home, you want to be with them, and then they're all upset because of something that happened. And same thing with your friends too. You know, you hang out with one of your boys and you're in a bad mood, and then you're just all mopey and stuff. Then what's the point? Right? What's the point? You wanna be in the moment and leave the things where they need to be.
It's hard to do. I feel like I always, in the past couple episodes, I've been trying to relate to myself because Pat, who I do this with, is older. I think he's like 43. He's got kids and he's a professor and he's got his life really together. And that's why it's nice to have you guys on because you're both good friends and you guys are both running successful businesses and people that I aspire to be like. And I think it's good to hear how you guys stack your goals and like organize your week, prioritize your time, and then the present thing. There's a saying, you probably heard it before, where it's the past is history, the future's a mystery, but the present's a gift. That's why we call it the present.
Yeah, that's why it's a present.
Yeah.
That's
so I feel like being here and now and really trying to be focused on what you're doing is definitely a good.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I mean, you know, us being here right now, the three of us together, I think is awesome, and you know, I'm happy that we were finally able to align our schedules to make it happen because. You know, we've been trying to do this for a little bit now, you know. And
yeah,
so,
it's hard to get like, you know, a free moment here with all the cars that come in and out, and then Greg's busy too with work and family and his business too as well. So, what other cars have you had other than the Supra? Because I want to talk a little bit about Greg. We always joke about how many cars he's had, so we can talk a little bit about.
So realistically, I haven't. I stopped counting because before I did used to change cars a lot. I mean, you know, when I was in high school, I graduated high school with probably like having 12 cars because I would get a car and then I would trade it in. Once the title came, I would trade it with somebody else. But I started off with Hondas, which is, I'll tell you the funny story that my first car actually, I won it on eBay, okay, and I was 14 years old, and I remember my mom and dad freaking bitched me out because I was bidding on it and I didn't think I was gonna win, and then I ended up winning, and I was like, oh my God, and the car was local. The guy actually ended up driving it. It was a Honda Civic, like a 94 Honda Civic four-door. And it was crashed in the front. At that time, I was doing auto body at Bosie's. And I had a little experience with auto body, so I said, you know what, I'll buy this car. I paid $1,100 for it, okay? And he dropped it off at my house, and I actually tied the front end to like one of those pullers they use for fences. And I pulled out the front end. I pulled it because the rat support was all pushed in. I pulled it out, and I went to Hunts Point. I bought a bumper, a hood for it, and it was complete because that was what was missing, right? And it had a system. It was all riced out because back in the day, it had actually black and white leather interior, which is insane. Like I wish I had pictures of that car because it was so cool, but at the same time, like just so different. And I remember I sold that car for $3,500. So I like more than doubled my money. And then that's when I went out and I bought my Del Sol. So I had a Del Sol right at 15. I still wasn't 16 yet. And it was a 97 single cam turbo. It had a Greddy turbo kit. I knew nothing about cars back then. And the car ran like shit. Like I remember like, it was a single cam turbo, but it ran worse than like if it had no turbo. And I didn't know why. I thought that it was because like the motor was bad or something. So I remember I changed spark plugs, like the basic stuff, not knowing that the car was on a stock ECU and it was on stock injectors. So like it had a turbo kit that just wasn't meant for it.
It was a real Greddy kit too?
Yeah, it was a real Greddy kit.
That's sick.
Yeah.
Usually they're just eBay kits.
With a Greddy front intercooler too. It was sick. And I never registered the car, so what I ended up doing was The car wasn't working for me. So I posted it up for trade on Craigslist, and I traded it for a bike. I got an R6. And I got an R6 when I was 15 years old.
Oh my
and I remember I was like, oh my God, it
Can
was
you
the
even
coolest
drive
thing ever.
at 14? So no permit till
No,
like
no.
16, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
What'd you do? You just looked at the car and like sat in it?
well,
You drove it around local?
unfortunately, I would, that's how I learned to drive.
You used to race people?
I used to take my mom's car when she was sleeping.
I got grounded for taking out my parents'
She
cars.
never found out because she lost her keys, her spare keys, and I had her spare keys. So she never knew. And what I would do is at night when my parents were sleeping, I would go into the car, put it in neutral, let it roll down the hill, and then I'd turn it on down the street. So no one would
You
know.
were smart, man.
Yeah,
How
that's
far
what
would
I
you
did.
go?
I would drive all night.
Self-taught driver. Right
Yeah,
here.
so I would drive all night, and that's why when I had to take
That's
my
my
permit
cat
test,
solo in the morning.
when I had to take my permit test, I didn't know how to parallel park because I never parked. I would always just drive. Like I was a great driver, I just couldn't park. But yeah, that was fine. I used to take my mom's car when I was really young, and that's when I learned to drive.
You said Del Sol. Where did Ludensol come from again? I know we talked I
So
think, about it
so
on the
that's
first
so I had a
episode.
Del Sol, and then while I had the Del Sol, I also had gotten a Prelude. I found a Prelude also on eBay, and it was a sixth gen. It was red, Renaissance red, and I freaking loved that car. And I remember I had that car because the Del Sol wasn't running, so I had the Del Sol for a little bit, but it just was parked. I never registered it, and I never drove it. And I wish I could go back in time now. You hear that?
That's Amazon.
Yeah, your truck backing up.
Okay. I wish I can go back in time and like never ever sold that car because it was a 97, which was the last year of the Del Sols, and it was pretty clean. It was the green, which was also kind of rare, not the Samba green, but like the 97 green, which was almost like the green on the Supra, on the 97 Supra, which is pretty cool. And so anyway, I had that car, it never ran, and then I had gotten a Prelude. So I had a Prelude and I had a Del Sol. And that was back in the forum days, so I made my forum name was Lud and Sol, and then that name just stuck the whole time. And even when I got rid of those cars, I kept that name on everything, and that name is just where we are right now. But that was where Ludensol came from, was from those two cars. And then after the Prelude, I got into an Integra. I've had a lot of Integras. I even had a JDM front championship white Integra that was pretty cool. I had a couple that were turbo, and then I had gotten an IS300, which was when I first started getting into like the rear-wheel drive cars. My first one was the IS300, and then I went into the GS. So I had 4 GSs. Like
You've been loyal to JDM, man.
Yeah, I've never had an American car.
Never German or anything either?
Never had a German car either. It was always been just JDM
I
cars.
gotta give you my JDM's plate.
Yeah.
You deserve that more than me.
That's it, JDM only. That's what it's always been, and then that's why just like the Supra was just next in line. That's just one of the cars that I was going to get. When I got the Supra, I still had my Lexus. I had a GS 400 that it was on airbags. I had custom interior, which is where I originally started building a connection with Eric, because he actually was the one that did my interior, which, believe it or not, my interior was one of like the first interiors that he did on his own, because he was doing it as a side work at his job. So we're talking about 10 years ago.
You met Eric.
I knew Eric from before, but that's how we kind of started working together, was from then. I gave him my car. He did my armrest. I remember I stayed with him until we stayed there till like 3 o'clock in the morning that night, because he was still learning the process, the game. And he did my car, and yeah, that's a little history on the cars that I've had.
Awesome.
Do you
Greg?
think you would ever venture into exotics?
Realistically, I would love one. I don't think that I'd ever get rid of my Supra. Really, what I want a 911 GT3. I mean, who doesn't?
This is why we're all friends,
Why would
man.
anyone
Yeah,
want one
like,
of
why would
those?
anybody want one of those?
STI.
Yeah, I mean, why not an STI?
Oh, God. For those who watch this, they'll know why you're saying that.
But I would love to have something like that, and one day maybe I will. But for now, I finally have my Supra running, and I like to call my Supra like my little baby 911, because I took a lot of inspiration from the 911, like the yellow seatbelts, yellow brakes. I did
that's dope. I
the
didn't even know
stitching.
That.
That really is where I got all that.
That's
And
sick.
actually,
That's awesome.
the next thing I'm doing, which is pretty cool. I'm gonna do the center cluster in yellow. So like the you know, there's an option where you can do that in the Porsches, right?
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm doing that, and I did, you know, all like little things, and I feel like they all kind of came together pretty nice, and it made the car more modern, because my whole goal was to make the car feel and look more modern. So I even had a customer came one day, and he thought that my car was like a new Supra, and when I told him it was a '93, his jaw dropped, and he couldn't believe it, you know, because we're talking that's, you know what, how many years is that? That's
32 years now.
32 years,
That's
yeah.
crazy.
So 32-year-old car, and it doesn't look like a 32-year-old car, you know, and that was my whole goal behind it, was to kind of make that my little, you know, modern car, even though it's old.
Yeah, and I think people will appreciate that more than just anyone who bought a new car off the lot.
Yeah.
Because, you know, GT3s and whatnot, they're awesome cars. Like, I would love to have one, but at the same time, like, everyone has one.
Yeah.
And they're all the same. You can see 30 of them in a row. They all have the same engine, they all have the same transmission, and probably only 10% of them actually track the car. Whereas a Supra, it's kind of like, it's a project car at the end of the day. You build it to how you want it to be at the end of the day.
Exactly.
There's so many different combinations of how you can build Supras. You want high compression engine, low compression, drag racing. I don't really see them like autocross or anything like that, but you can have a street car, a full race car. Like, people don't really do that with exotic cars as much. And then with the Lambos, it's like, you know, you do the twin turbo kit and everyone just builds who has a faster twin turbo R8. So, but they're not really doing crazy custom work like we are with the Supras. And I think that's why I have a greater appreciation for JDM cars, is because they're tuners at the end of the day. Everyone has their own style, and it's kind of like, you know, a resemblance of you and your personality as a person.
I like that.
It's like
That's
art.
cool.
It's like
Yeah,
art.
that's
Literally art. So
That's a beautiful way to describe the car community, and like, not even cars being a hobby, but more of like an extension of who you are.
Yeah,
like
an
how you can
extension of your
express yourself,
personality.
and like how we all met.
Yeah.
Like, and we're all good friends now. It's like,
Exactly.
I try and explain it to coworkers and stuff at work, and like, it's
That's
so
the
hard
thing,
to
it's-
explain.
It's hard
stuff
to
to people
explain.
that don't understand.
People won't understand it, but it's why we all get together on Sundays for Cars and Coffee. You know, we go and look at everybody's cars, and it's true. I feel like, you know, the older cars, you know, even American cars, like you do your custom takes to it. You do your custom things. Like, you know, in my car, I did a lot of little things that no one will ever notice that kind of just set it apart, and it just you know, shows your vision, because you have a vision in your head, and you kind of just, you know, you make it happen. And that's what I love most about that, you know, is making that vision a reality, which is what we like to do here too. You know, with the interior. I mean, I have a customer here with a right-hand drive Supra, and he saw some of the things that we were doing on my car, and he had his own vision, and that's what we're doing. We know we're changing the seat, we're changing the door panels, we did the headliner, we did the armrest, all these little things to kind of give him the vision that he wants, which is something that, you know, I take a lot of pride in, because I love this. I love seeing the process, you know, start to finish, and kind of the idea, and helping someone come up with an idea, or giving them, you know, suggestions, and just making it, you know, making it a reality. Like, you know, for example, even something like this is a newer car, and one of the things that I suggested was, this car came factory with satin paint, and it also comes factory with satin carbon fiber. So to add a nice touch, we decided to do gloss PPF over the satin carbon fiber, which actually makes it look glossy. And it was a very hard project, because the rear diffuser on this car is like 50 pieces. And that means that, like, if the pieces don't align correctly, you're gonna see some of the matte shine through. So very tedious, very time consuming, and it was hard. It was stressful for me. I had to redo several pieces a couple times, because I had to extend it just a little bit more. But at the end, I think that it came out really good. The customer came and saw it today, and he absolutely loved it, because it actually looks different than before. Even though before it was matte, now with the gloss bits, it gives it a nice contrast, because even the mirrors were satin before, and it just all blended in too much. So now it actually has a nice two-tone look to it, which is a different vision, because there's no other car that's gonna come with this gloss, because they all, if you get carbon fiber on the factory matte, it comes with matte carbon fiber. You know, so unless you were gonna paint it all in gloss, you're not going to get that look. So this is going to be a little unique for now.
It's nice because you get the protective paint film to protect the actual paint itself. If you just did a clear over it, then you don't get that.
I didn't even know that this carbon was matte. I thought it was.
Yeah, he opened the door before.
Yeah, that's the point. The point is to make it look like it, right? Because you wouldn't think that would work, but I think it looks really cool. And you know, moving forward, if someone wants a little tip and a little trick is, if you're gonna pay extra to buy a car that comes satin, I wouldn't do it. I would save the money and use that to do stealth PPF. Yeah, and the reason why I say that is because when you buy a car that comes factory satin, you have to pay more for it, right? First, you have to pay a lot more for it. And number two is you actually have to sign a waiver saying that you are aware that you're buying a satin car and that if anything happens to the paint, like, they're not responsible. The reason being is because even something as simple as like a bird pooping on the roof, right? And if you leave it in the sun, it's gonna bake into the paint and there's no polishing it because it's satin, so you can't polish it. If it stains it, you're gonna have a permanent stain, right? And you can't just repaint a roof. You are gonna have to essentially paint the whole car. Now there are some shops that could try to match it, but you'll never get 100% match because the satin actually comes in the clear coat. It's not in the paint itself. It's the way that the clear coat is sprayed is what gives it that satin look, because satin has clear coat. It's just dull. So it's not as shiny. So even if something as you rubbing your finger too hard on the paint will cause a shiny spot, and that shiny spot will never go away.
So if you polish a matte paint, it'll turn
glossy.
Glossy. Wow.
And now you can never go back to matte or satin.
Wow.
That's why I would say if you want this look, I would get the color that you want, whether it's black, whether it's blue, whatever. And then the money that you would be spending on buying, on paying extra for that, just put it into stealth PPF, because now you'll get the look and you'll get the protection of the paint. So now the paint's 100% protected. And the cool thing about it too is that now, God forbid you ever get into an accident and something has to be repainted, it could be blended normally. You can just put the stealth PPF back on and that's it. You know, like nothing ever happened. And it's just, I think it's just an easier route. And it saves you money if you want this. And the best part about it is in 5 years, if you want to go back to gloss, you pull it all off and now it's like you have another new car again.
Agree.
Right?
True.
Yeah, that was a big thing.
Yeah, that's definitely a good way to think about it. Never buy a satin car. What happens if you polish the satin? Because he said matte turns gloss.
Yeah.
Still
Well, the
gloss
biggest
for both?
difference, matte and satin, the biggest difference is people get them confused all the time, but matte has absolutely like no gloss at all to it, right? Whereas satin has a little sheen. A little sheen. So this car actually was more matte than satin. And what was happening was it was leaving fingerprints all over, which is another thing too, is fingerprints. So there was fingerprints all over this car. And just from like the oils in your fingers. Yeah. And also very delicate. So I know that if this car, that's why we did full PPF. If this car didn't have PPF on it, it was gonna get ruined instantly, just because it's just how delicate it is. Now satin is a little less delicate, but it's still the same thing. It's still the same process.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, Greg. So how many cars have you had?
Right now, I've had 71.
Randy, you've had a good amount though too.
But I know people have had hundreds. So
True. And my parents give me a hard time about like, oh, he's had so many cars, and then Greg said 70.
It almost sounds like fake, right? Like, all right, what's the real number?
Out of 71, put you on the spot. If you could name your favorite, or even like top three, because favorite's probably hard.
Top three.
Or even cars that you've driven and haven't bought. Like, what are, for the viewers, car viewers?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because I've had a lot of different types of cars: American, Japanese, German, a couple Italians, even Swedish cars. Like I've tried to try a lot of things, including Jeeps and American trucks, but I always lean back to the same. I think like three cars. It's gonna be Porsche, 911, or now recently a Spider, which is based off a Cayman chassis with the engine and everything. Porsche, because they're like probably one of the most highly engineered and reliable German brands when it comes to high performance and motorsport, and their racing heritage is just, it's unmatched aside from like Ferrari. But I like Ferraris and all, and I was even considering one, but they are just so finicky, as any other Italian cars are. They're very high maintenance. Something goes wrong when you if you just let the car sit there off a tender, you know, you're bound to have issues. So that kind of scares me from those. So I always lean back to the good old Japanese cars. Even American cars have been pretty reliable. But when it comes to German cars, like the Volkswagen Group, they have been very good to me. So that's why I love my R8s. I've had 2 R8s. One was a manual V8, one was a V10 DCT. Both were great cars to drive on a daily basis, very comfortable. They were cheap to insure, and you know, because you can just go to Geico and plug it in, and it was like the same price as my SUV that is a Mazda. So I think they're just great, like daily drivable, I guess entry level exotic cars. Like it's nothing compared to this, which is going to be a whole different ballpark. But the R8s, the Porsches, like the 911s are great cars. And then if I had to pick like a favorite Japanese car, it was probably the Supra and the NSX.
Yeah.
The NSX I love because it gives you a driving experience like that of a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, because it has the mid-engine, which no other Japanese car in its time had. Like the RX-7, the Supra, and the GTR were all front engines and a lot of inline sixes. So they're just dynamically very different. And the NSX was lightweight, it had no power steering, so it was just a very visceral driving experience. Like you had to put effort into steering, but you got all that feedback. And that's what I love about analog cars, is because they give you that driving experience that these newer cars don't, because they're highly electronically assisted. And you know, you try to go to like do a burnout or something, you have like 50 lights coming up on your dash preventing you from doing that.
Yeah.
The EV cars kill it. Like I hate EV cars. My wife just got one. We spent an hour charging her car, and it's like brick out. So I'm like, there's so many other things I could be doing right now besides sitting at Wegmans having my car charged for an hour.
Yeah.
I get that it's cheap if you have a house and you plug in at your home, but when you're publicly charging, it's such a huge inconvenience.
Yeah.
Like you just buy a hybrid at that point. But the lease deals were crazy good on it, and that's the only reason why we got it. But like you will never find me owning just an EV. And I like the newer cars because obviously one, warranty, less issues that you have to deal with, and they give you that performance, you know, right out of the box. Whereas older cars, you got to do a lot of work to them.
Yeah.
But I think like if I were to have 2 cars at the same time, like just 2 like supercars or whatever you want to call it, weekend cars, it would probably be a Porsche and it would probably be like a Supra or something like that. I think that would be like dynamically the best combo. Or you can have R8 and like a Supra. I think those would be like my top 2 choices.
Was the NSX boosted?
My first one was not. My second one was boosted. But both cars gave me issues, as any 30-plus-year-old car would, and that is the trade-off when you have these old cars. Is you're constantly working on them. You're constantly dumping money into them, and they create this stress that is unnecessary. And people are always like, why are you always so sad? Why do you look so pale? I'm like, because of my freaking car.
Right?
Like, there's so many issues out there in the world that you could have. And mine is my car doesn't run.
Yeah.
So like that's what makes, I feel like that's what makes you a car guy at heart, is like what's your biggest stress in life? It's like, oh, my freaking car hasn't been working right ever since I've owned it. And I had that car for probably like 2 years, and I probably sunk close to 50K into it, and the car was not perfect until a week before I sold it.
And that's always how it is. It's always how it
Always
is.
how it
Yeah,
is. You
right before you
spend
get
all
it.
your time owning it, fixing it, building it, putting
so
money
true.
into it,
It's like my Beamer,
and it's
too. I'm, like,
nice
ready
for a
to get
little
rid of
bit,
it
and
now.
it's like, all right, well, I'm ready to move on already.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like why I kind of flip between cars so often, is because I don't want to get too involved and sink all this money into it, and then end up selling it for something else I want to try. Because that's my goal: try and experience as many different chassis as possible. And I don't think there's ever going to be one car that I keep long term.
Yeah, you've definitely opened my mind to that. Like, I was very fixated on having my forever car.
Yeah.
Like, I think the Supra's different because that's something that if you got rid of, you may not be able to get it again.
I'd hate myself if I ever did that.
But I think it's cool though to like be open-minded to, especially like Greg let me drive his 718, and like I'm like, wow, now I get it. Like, you really have to get behind the wheel. I mean, I watch these guys on YouTube. I'm around you guys driving your cars, but until you're in the seat,
It's different.
it's
I know.
completely different.
And that's actually one thing too that I learned from Greg, and I really appreciate from you, is the fact that like you get to do like experience all these cars, and I want to start doing the same thing too. I mean, I get to see these cars all the time, but I don't get to experience it, you know. So I'm looking into getting something. It's hard because I'm always working, so I'm just like, oh man, you know. But even like when I drive my Supra, I'll enjoy it on the drive home usually, and that's enough, you know, after a long drive home. But I do want to get some. I have been itching to get something. I just don't know what it is yet because I want so many different things. But I do want to experience another car and add something soon to the fleet. You know,
I'd love
something
to see
I can
that.
enjoy.
I'd want to help you with that.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
I think for me
Awesome.
personally, why I go through so many cars, I think all the fun and the excitement is the hunt for
Yeah.
the car,
Yeah.
like searching for it, bidding on them, on like bringing trailer cars and bids,
Yeah.
and then taking delivery of it, and then like driving it for the first time for like a week, 2 weeks. I think those are the most exciting times about buying
That's
a car.
the best feeling.
But then,
Yeah.
like after a month, it's kind of just like I'm getting bored of this thing.
Yeah.
And especially if you drive it a lot,
Yeah.
like daily drive it or drive it frequently, you lose interest in the car, and you don't want to modify it too much to the point where like it's gonna be hard to put back to stock and sell it to get something else. So that's kind of what I've been doing recently is, you know, trying to find cars that have already been modified,
Yeah.
like tastefully and with quality parts. And that way I can sell it as is, and I don't have to put that money, my own money, into the car and never get it back.
Yeah.
But you know, recently I got that E92. I thought I was gonna have it for like at least a couple months.
He thought he was gonna have
drove
for at
that
least a
thing,
week,
man.
and
That
it
thing
lasted
probably
not even a
sounded
The
day.
car was here, and then it was sold the same day.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I enjoyed driving it for the time, but you know, I never driven like E92 to that extent, and it just wasn't the car for me.
Yeah, and I think that that's a big thing, is just finding the right car too. Because I think that once you find the right car, I feel like you won't get rid of it, and then if you want something else, you're gonna go and find something else. So that's why, like with me, like I've debated so many times that I wanted to sell my Supra and get something else, because I do want a 911, and I was like, you know what, I'll just sell it and get that. But I know that I'm never going to be able to get it again, so I can't sell it. So that's why I would just want to try to find something else, and then, you know, like you said, experience it. And it might look cool, it might sound cool, people might say, oh yeah, they love it, but until you actually experience it and see what you think, you might not like it, and then you want to switch on to the next one. So that's kind of what I want to do, is just, you know, find my next car, you know, and start the process. You know, you've had a lot of cool cars that I want to try, and, you know, you can help me out, we'll find something. We'll do a nice build on it.
Heck yeah, man, for
know,
sure.
I think that'd be really
I told
cool.
Greg I'm turning 30 this year, and I'm like,
We gotta
I
get
could get
him.
a
We gotta
GT4,
get him a
man.
P car.
And then you
He's
can
gonna
drive
get it.
that.
He's
You can
gonna
drive
get it,
that,
of
and you can
course.
experience. You let me drive this car, man. And I'm like,
We send each
I
other
used
like
to be-
reels all the time, just like, oh, me and my buddy bought P cars, and now we're like cruising in the valley or something. I'm like, dude, we're gonna make it happen. Like,
You gotta make it happen.
100%,
That's
man.
it.
You gotta manifest, exactly.
Yeah.
But like, I used to be the guy that was like, no one's ever gonna drive my car,
Yeah.
and like it's almost like you're like letting one of your friends be with your girl or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
That's one big thing with me too, is that I want to share that passion that I have with my car. And like, you can ask Greg, like I've let him drive my car so many times. I even told you, you know, unfortunately it wasn't working when I told you, but now once the weather is nice, like you can drive my car, dude. I want you to experience it. I let people drive it all the time because I want them to feel what, you know, what the excitement that car brings.
Right.
It's just raw, the way the car sounds, everything just adds to
when
that
it hits
whole
the
experience.
two-step, man, it's
Yeah.
insane.
It's
With
fun,
that red
man.
line,
I turn into a little kid when I'm driving that car,
Yeah.
and that's my biggest thing too. Is you don't want to lose your inner child, you know, and that comes with everything, which are just the passions that you have, and the things that you do. Because we're all gonna have bad times, but if you just never lose the inner child, and that's what happens with kids is like they get in trouble, and what happens? You yell at them. Like I have a 3-year-old, and I'll yell at him, and then 2 minutes later, it's like nothing ever happened. And why is that? It's because they have that childlike to them, you know what I mean? And that's what I like to keep. You know, we're always gonna have bad days, and as long as you know that the next day is just today's a good day, today's a new day, you can use that with everything.
Yeah, it doesn't like stick to them. They don't
It
have
doesn't
an ego
stick to
built
it.
yet.
Yeah, and then you have fun. You know, you be silly and just be you and enjoy life, because You know, life is short, man. Life is
For
short.
real,
We never know what's gonna happen.
No,
to
you're
us.
right. I mean, like where I work in the hospital, and I had a guy the other day, 44 years old, had a stroke.
Yeah.
Had no issues before, and
Exactly.
the whole
And
right
I
side of his
guarantee you
upper
the
and lower
week-
body
yeah.
can't even move it.
Yeah.
Can't even
And
get up.
imagine the week before, he probably was fine, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's crazy to see
You-
it
you
like
never
firsthand
know.
in
You
the
never know.
ICU, like you know.
You never know. So that's
Split
why
on.
enjoy, and that's why, like you said, man, enjoy these cars, and that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to start driving and enjoying cars, and that's it, because life is short, and we got to experience it all.
I think the protect your dreams thing is really important.
Yeah.
For sure, because we all have like, especially myself too. Like before grad school and coming out of grad school, I was so ready to like get out, start my clothing brand, start this podcast, do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's like you get into your routine of like work and like normal, life of being an adult, and it's like, how am I gonna make that happen? Now I got all these responsibilities.
harder.
I got a place now. I got a mortgage. I got bills.
Congratulations, yeah.
Thank you. So it's like, you got to protect the dreams, and that's why it's nice to be around you guys. That like you're hustling, you're making things happen. You're not friends with a lot of people, but you're friends with like a good smaller group of very important and respectable and people that really want to see you be successful. And I think that's the most important thing.
That's the biggest thing, is having the right people around you.
For
You know
sure,
what I mean? You
man.
have the right people around you, and you just have a good vibe, a good energy, and you can just help each other out any way that, whatever that means. That's it. And even if it's something as simple as just sending you a meme, and it's just like, oh yeah, you're gonna get your own. Like something just as simple as that, I know means so much, because it just gives you like, oh shit, like he cares, you know what I mean? And he wants me to do that, and it's gonna push you, believe it or not. Even if you do it subconsciously, it's gonna push you,
Yeah, for sure.
right?
Yeah, and like you guys both said about your cars when you first got them, you didn't even know how you were going to do it, but like you did it.
Yeah.
And you just figure it out. Like it's true, man.
just figure
the
it
more
out,
people
yeah.
that I talk to, like even Vince, who owns Promables, like he said the same thing. He's like, it may look like from like afar that I know what I'm doing, but
Yeah.
I'm just figuring it out, man.
Yeah, you just figure it out along the way, because that's the problem too, is that when you try to really think and plan everything out 100%, like you're gonna lose your shot, because someone else is gonna come and just do it, and then that's it, And that's the big thing, is like trying to find that balance of like planning a little bit, but also not planning too much. Just go in and figure it out along the way, because that is how you learn and how you grow. You make a mistake, and then you learn from that, and now you hopefully don't make that same mistake again.
Right.
And that's just, that's literally what it is, how you just have to do it.
The Einstein quote is, I didn't fail 10,000 times, I found 10,000 things that don't work. I love
Exactly,
that.
right?
So true,
exactly.
man.
That's 100% what it is.
And it's hard because it's an ego thing. Like no one wants to make mistakes.
No one wants to make
like
mistakes.
kind of live a clean, perfect life, but you got to, yeah.
Yeah, because it's the same thing of having like sun with no rain. Like if it's always sunny, then you're not going to experience, oh, what is sunny? Like you have to have the rain to be able to experience the sun, and that's what it is,
Amen, man.
right?
For sure. Yeah, no, I think that's a good point to end on, and we'll definitely do more of these for sure. Whether it be like, on Greg's platform, or Greg has a YouTube, so make sure you follow all of his stuff. BuyYourBuild, right? That's all your social. On Instagram, YouTube. Greg's been on YouTube for a while. I actually watched his videos and stuff. Funny enough, knew him through. Shout out to Jeff Carrera at Westchester Wheel Repairs, another homie. You know Jeff. You know Jeff.
Yeah.
And mentioned both of you guys were great people, so that's kind of why I was like, all right, cool. Like I'm in a good spot. And saw Greg at a car show and became buddies with him over time. And anyways, watched his YouTube prior to that and all the cars that he had. Didn't even know they were his cars. So I'm just like, oh, this dude like gets to drive client cars and stuff. That's awesome. Meanwhile, they're all his cars.
All his cars, yeah.
And then met Randy kind of like through the same thing, like
same
through
thing,
Matt,
yeah.
Motion by Matt.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the biggest thing I'd leave our viewers with is just surround yourself with the right people, and get those people in your corner that are telling you that what you want to do is possible. I think that's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
Because really anything's possible. Patrick says, my co-host, he's like, I'm not a realist, a pessimist, but I'm becoming a possibilist. Like, what's possible in life?
Of course.
I think that's the way to think about it. So
That's the best way to
make
think
sure you
about
follow Ludensol.
it. Yeah, Ludensol.
If you need anything in Westchester County, New York, just type it in. You can find where Randy's located.
Yep.
And if you guys have any questions, comment below. If you have any questions for Randy or Greg, comment below. And thank you for listening. Thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here and taking a step towards growth. As the saying goes, change is inevitable, but growth is optional. We look forward to sharing more expertise and content with you, and we want to hear from you about what topics you're interested in learning more about. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this experience, please like, subscribe, and share with others who could benefit.
Our goal is to grow the show and bring on more valuable guests to provide relevant content for your life. Thank you for joining us on this mission to spread knowledge and connect with people around the world. The Valued Pursuit podcast and content posted by Valued Pursuit is presented solely for general informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from this podcast or website are at the user's own risk. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, medical, psychotherapist, or any other qualified professional, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical or mental health condition they may have, and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such condition.
You ever have a vision? Something you see play out before it happens? They say that the scariest thing in life is not growing into your potential, not recognizing the person you were created to be. We are on a mission to help everyone on this planet chase that version of you, your most fulfilled self. Created here in the USA, Reinvent Co. is now releasing their one-off hoodie in a full zip design. Premium quality fitted to your physique to show you are chasing greatness in all aspects of life. Wear a garment that shows your potential evolving over a lifetime, and become a part of a brand where humans connect to knock down the obstacles they face for endless refinement and continuous improvement.